In this lecture, now we will study the uniform plane waves in lossy dielectrics, or also called the imperfect dielectric. So, a lossy dielectric is a partially conducting medium, that is, they have the conductivity to be non-zero, that they have some conductivity, that is, sigma is not equals to zero. So, if some dielectric have some conductivity, then this type of dielectric will exhibit a some sort of lossiness. Well, we will see it later when we drive the equation. Then we will see that the wave will be in the moving in some lossy fashion. So this type of dielectric where the conductivity is not equals to zero, then this dielectric is called the lossy dielectric or also called the imperfect dielectric. So here when EM waves moves in this type of dielectric, while it propagates, the loss of power occurs. So let us start to drive the equations of EM fields for this type of medium. So we assume that the now still the dielectric have free of charges. It is a medium is free of charges, that is rho v equals to 0. So the Maxwell's equation in a phasor form will remain same except there is a change in this part. This is same, divergence of ds is 0 because rho v 0, this is already 0, and here you have the same previous equation. Now the curl of Hs also includes the displacement current and the conduction current. So here previously this conduction current was 0, so now this is also there due to the conductivity. So conductivity is there, though there is a possible that the conduction current is there, and we will use this Js notations to include the conduction current density. And when you further simplify, this conduction current density is simply sigma into the electric field here. This is the conduction current density, and here when you open ds, it will become the epsilon es. So here you have this equation. All the remaining equations are remain same. Only this equation changes, and it or incorporate the this conductivity, that is sigma will be here. Now again finding the wave equation, taking the curl of es of this equation, taking the curl both sides, and then for the proceeding. So this part will again become 0. Rho dot ds is 0. So here the wave equations will look like this. So previously it was having the minus omega square mu epsilon. Now this factor will also be there, and due to this we have this equation. So we put this whole term as gamma square, where gamma square is equals to j omega mu and sigma plus j omega e. This is called the propagation constant. Is here, and it is complex because here we have the j terms. It will be this part will be the imaginary, this part, and this part will be the real. When you take under root, again it will be simplified. Still, you will get the some real and imaginary part. So this quantity called the propagation constant is complex in nature. So in any complex quantity can be written in terms of real and imaginary part. So we have two parts. One is called the real part and another is called the imaginary part. And here we call this alpha to be attenuation constant. It will be in the Nap per meter. And beta is called the phase constant. Or sometimes it is also called the wave number. So you see in the later classes that sometimes we use the wave numbers also. So here we have beta is called the phase constant. So alpha is attenuation constant, which is the real part of this gamma, and beta is the phase constant, which is the imaginary part of this uh, propagation constant. Now solution of this equation will be, if one of the solution is this one, we have also the other part, that is plus c2 e to power plus gamma x. Just focus on the this one solution here. So es equals to c1 e to the power minus gamma. When you put up here, you will see that this will fulfill this equation, and this is a solution. So this is just one solution where gamma is this one, gamma x minus gamma x. Now we obtain the instantaneous electric field or the time varying electric field, taking just the real part of this quantity multiplied with the time factor e to the power j omega t. So this is the phasor part, and when you multiply phasor part with the e to the power j omega t and then take the real part, you will get the real time varying field. So finally what you're getting when you open it, so e to the gamma x will be to the power minus alpha plus j beta x e to the power j omega t, and you can combine the complex part with this one, and this is the real part. So it will become, this is the real, this is assumed to be real, and we can take it out. So these two quantity we assume to be real, this is we assume real, and this is already a real quantity, so this is real, and this is a real part of j omega t minus beta x, and real part of j omega t minus beta x is the cos omega t minus beta x. So finally what you are getting, we are getting the time varying field uh, in this fashion. So this is similar to the previous case when we have solved for the lossless dielectric, only this term have added, this new term have added here in this fashion. So if it was absent, that alpha is 0, then it will become the previous case, c1 cos omega t minus beta x. Now what is happening with this e to the minus alpha x? What is the effect of this factor? So this is a real quantity, and if this quantity is less than 1, what will happen? This will decrease its value, that is it will attenuate this signal. So if, for example, alpha is such that if you increase the x, then this quantity is decreased. The alpha is positive, for example, and then you increase the x, then this quantity will further decrease. And as you pass through the x coordinate, x distance, then this factor will further reduce and you will have the attenuation. So it can be shown here, this here, because this is a wave propagating in the positive x direction. We have already seen that when you have a minus here, then this part is a wave propagating in the x direction, and this is a factor which is multiplied. So when you have, for example, t equals to 0, so it will be cos beta x. So if it was 1, then you will have simply a full wave of cos. But now this is a factor as you pass in the x. So if x increases, this factor will also increases. So it will multiply it. The actual value will be decreased by the peak value now not be C1, but it will be lesser than C1. So it will be attenuated somehow. So this is how the exponentially it will decrease the amplitude of this wave. Similarly, as t passes, then this wave will look like to be shifted in the right direction, and it will be seems to be propagating in the x direction. This is a similar case, only the difference is that now the wave will be attenuated as passes in the space. In a different point, you will get the different value of the peak value. Now the peak value of will be now decrease. So if it is here a maximum value, then as you pass through this x distance, then at a later point space point you will have a very smaller value. So this will is the attenuation factor here. So attenuated by the factor e to the power minus alpha x. That's why alpha is called the attenuation factor and beta is called the phase constant. Now alpha is in Napier because it is in the e to the power minus alpha x. One Napier means, when you have one Napier means that the field, this value will be attenuated by e to the power minus 1. If you have a 2 Napier means you have field will be attenuated by e to the power minus 2. So if you take, for example, we have 4 Napier of attenuation of alpha, then it will alpha will be equals to 4. So here alpha is a Napier per meter. So the as in the lossless case, the phase constant and the phase velocity are same. That beta is equals to 2 pi over lambda, and v equals to given by omega over beta. So now we already know gamma equals to this value. Now you want to find the speed, that is the velocity, phase velocity. So now equating this alpha plus j beta equals to under root j omega mu. So you can find the alpha and beta by solving this. So I have here the solution. When the alpha is when you have this, take the real part and image part of this and equate with alpha and beta. So what you can see, simple step is that you first find alpha square plus beta square. How to find alpha square plus beta square? If you take the gamma square and real part of this, then you will get first when you take uh, the magnitude of r square gamma square, then you will get the alpha square. So if you take the magnitude of this uh, gamma square, then it'll be just alpha square plus beta square. And if you take the real part of gamma square, then you will get some alpha square minus beta square. You can verify that, and then you can solve these two equations to get the alpha and beta. So finally what you are getting, alpha is comes out to be this factor, and beta is comes out to be this here. So only difference is -1 and +1, you have to remember here. So alpha is this equation and beta is this equation. The alpha and beta are both function of omega, mu and epsilon and sigma. Three factors will depend upon the alpha and beta. So now how to find the V? V is equals to omega over beta, and here omega over omega under root, this factor will be the V. Now what do you see? V is not just a function of the medium, the dielectric, but it is also a function of the this omega frequency. It will depend upon the frequency. So this is a factor here which will contribute in the V. So as the frequency change, the phase velocity will change. It is a this phase velocity is a function of the frequency also. Previously, it was just a independent to frequency, and you have the under root mu epsilon. So because beta was a linear function of omega, and that will be cancelled out, you will get the 1 over under root mu. So this is independent to the frequency, and this V was constant for the all the signals, all the frequencies. Now here for the lossy dielectric, now the phase velocity is also depending upon the frequency. So different frequency will exhibit different velocity. What it means by that, that is the different frequency in a wave travels with different velocity, that results in dispersion. So there will be a dispersion due to this lossiness in the dialect, that is due to the some conduction, this conductivity sigma is non-zero. So that will result in that the different frequency of signal. For example, if you have a signal which have different frequency, five, for example, you have four frequencies, 1 kilohertz, 2 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz, and if you want to propagate in the space, then each frequency will have a different phase. So at the end result, what will have, the different signal will travel with a different speed and they will reach at different time. So now the signal will be dispersed, it will be spread in time. That is called the dispersion, and uh, this is a limitation of the communication channel. We want to avoid a dispersion. So lossy dielectric will create the dispersion uh, in the medium, and the signals will exhibit this type of spread in the time domain. So this is an important result. So to avoid the dispersion of the signal, we want to have a medium which is lossless in nature, or the lossiness should be as small as possible so that dispersion can be avoided. So dispersion is due to the conductivity in the medium. Now, if sigma equals to 0, then if sigma equals to 0, this will become 0, and 1 under root is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0. So this alpha equals to 0, and beta will become equals to mu omega under root mu epsilon, and you will have the same previous value. So alpha equals to 0, beta equals to uh, omega under root mu epsilon, and then gamma will become j beta, and in the previous case. So it will become a lossless dielectric, and it will lead to the previous situation, and you have the no addition will be there and no dispersion will be there. Now, to find the magnetic fields, so let electric field has only y component, as we have assumed in the last case. To simplify, to understand the concept, we just focus on to the one component. So let has a phasor form. This ESY of the electric field is of some sort of like this. So this is the magnitude, and there is the direction. So we focus on the y component. So you have EY AY. Now to find the H magnetic fields, so it will applying the Maxwell's equation in the phasor form. So del cross Es equals to minus j omega mu Hs. So Hs equals to minus j omega mu, and you have the del over del x, Ax cross C1 equal minus gamma x Ay. Again, because this is a function of x only, so here del over del y and del over del z will give you the 0. So we have omitted here only we have this part del over del x Ax. So when you take this cross product of these two factors, so this will be multiplied, and here you have del over del x equal minus gamma x, and Ax cross Ay, again you will get the Az. So again Hs has a direction in the z axis. So if E in the direction of y-axis, then Hs comes out to be in the direction of the z-axis, means they again comes out to be perpendicular to each other. And this is the magnitude. So again gamma over j omega mu. So here we again put is as the eta. So this is equals to eta equals to j omega mu over gamma, and here it will be 1 over eta esy. So eta equals to j omega mu under, when you open this is a factor. Now this is a complex quantity. Previously it was just when sigma is 0, you can cancel out, it will become j square, you can take j cancel out, and it will be just you can solve it for the later. So in this case, now the intrinsic impedance is complex. Previously for the lossless dielectric, the intrinsic impedance was real. Now as it becomes lossy due to the sigma effect, the intrinsic impedance becomes complex. So finally you have the intrinsic impedance here. In the real, when you have the lossless, it was under root mu over epsilon. You can also put up here, when you put sigma equals to 0, it will become lossless and you will lead to this equation. Now it is complex, so we can have its magnitude and phase. This is a magnitude and this is the phase. So here you have a magnitude part and the phase part. You can just find it. So if this is a factor eta equal to this, you can find its magnitude and phase. So what you are getting is magnitude is here. You can solve it, you can have a steps, and you can go through this one here or other way, but just have to find the magnitude. So magnitude of eta is this quantity. So this one be the magnitude, and this is the phase. There is a 2 theta n, is comes out to be the phase of this one, phase of this one. So phase of, you can find the phase. So finally what we are getting, this is the 2 theta n. This is the twice of the theta n. The theta n is the phase of the this eta, or theta n will be equals to half of tan inverse sigma over omega epsilon. So you can rewrite here. So tan inverse 2 theta n equal to sigma over omega epsilon. So you can find theta n here. So this is how the conclusion is important. What we have, first thing, the wave, due to the lossiness, the wave will attenuate within the space. If in use, when you see in the different point in the space, the wave will have a different values, and it would get attenuated with this factor. Second thing is that this velocity now is frequency dependent, and different frequency will travel with the different speeds. So it will lead to the dispersion. And third, the intrinsic impedance is complex now. It will have the magnitude as well as the phase. So these are the three conclusions of this lossy dielectric wave propagation. Remaining other things are same. Now, conductors and dielectrics here. So now what we have find which material is having good conductor or which are a good dielectric. So to understand that, let's find the ratio of the conduction current density and the displacement current density in some lossy medium. So the magnitude of these two is given by, so conduction current density is given by sigma ES, whereas the displacement current density, which is given by delta D over delta T, when you find its Phasor form, you will get the this one j omega E, this one. So it will, the Phasor form will be j omega ds, and you can replace ds with the epsilon es. So here is the displacement current density, and it is the conduction current density. The ratio of these two is comes out to be sigma over omega epsilon, and this is very important quantity, and it will be referred later also. This is equals to tan theta, and tan theta equals, what is theta now? Now if you because these are the vectors, so if you have plot the vector in this direction, for example, this is the direction of the this conduction current density, and let this the direction of the perpendicular to this is the direction of the displacement current density. So this angle will become theta, and this ratio theta over omega epsilon equals to tan theta. So based on this tan theta is known as the loss tangent, and it is also called the dissipation factor. So loss angle theta is a loss angle of the medium. So what is the significance of this figure and this theta? So what we can say, if for example, if this is a vector sum of these two vectors, so if you add this current densities, if you add these two current densities, then this is the resultant density. So if the resultant density is towards the, it is inclined towards this vector, towards the this condition current density, it means this part is dominating over this current density. So it is more towards the conductivity. It has a high conductivity. It is toward the conductor. If this resultant is inclined towards this vector, that is towards the displacement current density, it means this is dominating over the conduction current density, and this is medium will be acting as a dielectric rather than the conductor. It will be acting as a good dielectric. So it will be a good conductor if it is towards this theta is higher, or if theta is smaller, then it will be acting as a good dielectric. So we can define now two quantities, a good dielectric and a good conductor. So medium is said to be a good conductor if tan theta is very large. If theta is large, so this is inclined more towards this conduction current density, and this part will dominate. So we can say it is a good conductor. The conductivity is high. So this is a case when sigma is much greater than omega epsilon. Much greater than, it at least should be 10 times of this one. Then theta will be very high. And then you can say to be a good conductor. Or we can say sigma over this one should be much greater than 1. Then it will be called a good conductor. It is also called a good dielectric if it follows this condition, that it has some conductivity. You have some conductivity, but ratio of these two is less than 1, then it is called to be a good dielectric. So some materials which have high conductivity, but as the frequency increase, this ratio may become smaller, then they will exhibit a good dielectric. So there is no such thing that some dielectric is a good conductor or a good dielectric. It depends upon the frequency as well. It is just not only depending upon the sigma, that initially we was thinking that if sigma is high, then it means that it is a good conductor. But now we have to focus on to the frequency also. So we have to talk about the frequency, at which frequency we are talking about. So same conductor which have the which was very good conductor at the low frequency, when we have the low frequency, this part will be smaller, then this part will dominate, and you will factor away much greater than 1, that you will consider to be a good conductor. But as the frequency increase for the same conductivity, same sigma, if you this omega will become very high, that you have the high frequencies, gigahertz or terahertz, then in this case this will become less than 1, very less than 1, then it will become a good, the same conductor which was a very good at the low frequency now will become a bad conductor and will leads to the good dielectric at the high frequency. This is a phenomena which will depend upon the frequency. So the characteristic behavior depend upon sigma, epsilon, mu, and frequency. A medium regarded as a good conductor at low frequency may be a good dielectric at a high frequency. For example, if you have taken the earth for this, for example, if you take the earth, so let sigma earth is considered to be a good conductor at low frequency, but up to which frequency we can consider to be a good. So let this, we have some sigma of this earth is typical value is 5 into 10 to the power minus 3 mho per meter, and you have the permittivity may vary for different type of soils. So in general, let's take 10 times of this is 10 times of the free space permittivity. So when you find this one, so this is considered to be a good conductor, earth, but let's find the frequency up to which frequency it will be a good conductor. So when you put sigma over this one greater should be greater than 1. So what it means that omega should be less than epsilon over, sorry, less than sigma over this 10 times E naught. So when you put these values, so this comes out to be that I'm writing the f. What f is should be less than 900 kilohertz. Sorry, it should be 9 megahertz. You see it 9 megahertz. So it means that below 900 kilohertz, if you use the earth for the frequencies below 900 kilohertz, we have to take the at least 10 times of this. So f should be at least 10 times lower than this value. So if the frequency is lower than 900 kilohertz, maybe 800, 700, 850, then this earth will be considered as a good conductor. But if you increase to the gigahertz, then the same earth will exhibit a bad conductor, and it will lead to the dielectrics. Okay, so I stop it here. I will continue in the next slide, next video.